Today we're going to talk about properties of real numbers. Real numbers all have different properties that we use that we use quite regularly when we're doing operations with real numbers. The commutative property. In general, commute means to move. I commute from my house to work every day. I move my body from my house to work every day and then back. So in the commutative property, the terms move to a different place in the expression. So the commutative property of addition, the x plus y, the x and the y switch spots. So on this side, the x is first and the y is second. On this side, the y is first and the x is second. For the commutative property of multiplication, we just changed the operation. It's multiplication instead of addition. But here the x was first and the y is second. Here the y is first and the x is second. So the addition, we use addition. Multiplication, we use multiplication. And then the operations, they move. The variables move or the numbers move, and that's the commutative property. Let's rewrite the following expressions using the commutative property. So this one, we're just going to move the two numbers. So this becomes 7 plus -4. Notice we kept it as plus -4 because we're just using the commutative property. We're not, and that was of addition. It wasn't of subtraction. This one will change to z plus -4x. This one, there's actually two different things we could move around. Remember, we're still using the commutative property. So we could change the c to the other plus c to a different spot. And make it c plus a plus 2b. Or we could change what's in the parentheses and make it 2b plus a plus c. Both of those are examples of the commutative property. Remember, we talked about the commutative property of addition, not of subtraction. So we have to change this to 8 plus a -x. And then we can use the commutative property of addition to make it -x plus 8. This one we want to change to 3f plus 3f plus a -9q. We're going to put that in parentheses. And then that is -9q plus 3f. Commuting multiplication now, we have x times 5. 5x is the same as x times 5. C times 9 is the same as 9c. When we're talking about multiplication, you can use the asterisk, you can use a little dot, you can use the parentheses, or if it's a number times a variable, we normally don't write anything. And then this one, we're going to commute and make it -5x. And the last one, just like this one up here, where we had two different ways to do it, we can do the same thing here. We can switch what's in the parentheses and make it x times 2 times y, or we can make it y times 2x. So those are different ways we can use the commutative property. The associative property in general means to associate or group. The associative property in mathematics, we're changing the grouping of the expressions. The terms don't change order, just the grouping changes order. So the associative property of addition, notice it goes x, y, z. This one is also x, y, z. But the parentheses, the grouping, the x and the y are grouped together here. The y and the z are grouped together here. The grouping changed, not the order. Same thing with multiplication. We have x, y, z, x, y, z. The grouping differed. The order stayed the same. So let's rewrite these using the associative property. So now, instead of changing the order, we're going to change the grouping. So this one, we're going to keep all the numbers the same. So we're going to have -4 plus 7 plus 3. Originally, the grouping was -4 and 7. Now we're going to change the grouping to 7 and 3. This one, we're going to keep the order the same. So h plus -4x plus z. This one, the -4x plus z is grouped. So this one, we're going to change the grouping to be h and -4x. We need to write a parentheses around the -4x just to show that it's different than plus a negative. This last one, we're going to keep the grouping or the order the same. So a plus 2b plus c, but we're going to change the grouping. So this one was a plus 2b as the grouping. So this one we're going to change to 2b plus c as the grouping. For multiplication, again, we're keeping the order the same. 4, 5x. Originally, the 5x was grouped. This time, we're going to group the 4 and the 5. Notice I'm writing equals with all of these because they are actually equal. That's part of the property. C times 9 times r, we're going to keep the order the same. And then we're going to change the grouping. So the grouping here was c times 9. So now we're going to change it to 9r as our grouping and have the c in front of the parentheses. The last one, we're going to keep it x, -5. I'm going to put a parentheses around the negative, and c. The -5c was grouped, so we're going to group the x and the -5 together. So there should be 2 sets of parentheses at the end of the 5. Identity properties. Identity means exactly the same, identical. So when we use the identity property, we do an operation and we get exactly the same thing back. So that means for the additive identity, we're adding 0. When we add 0, we get the same thing back. For the multiplicative identity, we multiply by 1. When we multiply by 1, we get the same thing back. These are 2 major properties in mathematics. If you understand these, the algebra portion makes a lot more sense. The inverse property, inverse means to undo something. So when we use the inverse property, we will do the opposite operation so that we obtain 0 for addition and 1 for multiplication. 0 for addition is the unit for addition, and 1 is the unit for multiplication. The additive identity is x plus a negative x is equal to 0, or negative x plus x is equal to 0. The multiplicative identity is x times 1 over x is equal to 1. 1 over x times x is equal to 1. We do have the commutative property, so we know that these are actually the same. But when we talk about other things, there's other things that when we multiply together or add together, you don't always have this happen. So that's why when you see it written mathematically, you do actually see both of them written out. And then the distributive property. The distributive property is the only property that combines multiplication and addition or subtraction. It does not combine any other properties. And when you say it or write it out, make sure you say the distributive property of multiplication over addition or of multiplication over subtraction. That way you're going to remember that it doesn't use exponents and it doesn't distribute multiplication over multiplication or any of the other things. It's the distributive property of multiplication over addition. So when we distribute, this a goes to this one and this a goes to that one, so then we have a times x plus a times y. For the second one, we have the b goes to both of these, so we have x times b and y times b. The last property that we'll talk about is the multiplicative property of 0. The multiplicative property of 0 means if you multiply anything by 0, you get 0. Do not confuse it with the additive inverse. So in the additive inverse, remember, it was x plus 0 equals x. This is x times 0 equals 0, or 0 times x equals 0. So let's do some more rewriting. Let's rewrite this expressions using the distributive property of multiplication over addition. So there's addition here and there's multiplication here. So this one is going to distribute here and here. So we're going to have negative r times 3 plus x times 3. You could also write it as negative 3r plus 3x if you want. And again, remember, these are actually equal. This h, we're going to distribute this multiplication over this addition. So it's h times negative 4x plus hz. Again, we can use the commutative property if we want to, and commute to make it equal to negative 4hx plus hz. This is negative of, remember I said if the negative's on the outside, we're going to say negative of a plus b, or the opposite of a plus b. So the opposite of a plus b is negative a plus a negative 2b. This negative distributes in to both terms. Negative a plus a negative 2b. That's one of those big ones that you have to remember to distribute that whole negative over the whole addition. That's it for today. See you tomorrow.